I redesigned ogres. I've seen a couple videos here on YouTube where people decided to redesign dwarves or some other kind of fairy tale creatures. I thought it would be really fun to think of all these different giant, grotesque, ugly monsters from legends and mythologies around the world, and I wondered, what if they all had a shared ancestor? What do you think of when you hear ogre? You think of Shrek with his weird suction cup ears? I thought I would take the universal algorithm for ogres and try and apply that to all the different types of bumpy, fugly creatures in mythology. Here is a map of all the different types of ogres there are all around the world that I could just, find simply on a cursory glance at the internet. For this video, we're just going to focus on a couple of them, some of my favorite, and some of the first designs that I did for ogres. If you guys have any more ogre myths that you think that I don't have on my map, or if you just wanted to tell me that you thought one of them looked awesome and cute in an ugly kind of way, go ahead and comment below, and I really appreciate it because it's the only way that YouTube pays me. If you look at the map, you can see that not all the ogres are actually ogres. See, this is my representation of an ogre. Ogres have always had fangs and been giant and eat people, and there's a lot of other cool monsters that kind of fit the bill. So you're gonna see a couple creatures that are ogre in quality. In this universe where ogres are real and we've known about them forever, there could be a paleontology / archaeology study of ogres, and I'd call it Ogrethology, which is kind of cute. Ogrethologists could study ancient myths, specifically about the Cyclops or trolls or other monsters from around the world, and apply a scientific perspective to these magical fairy tale creatures, which is one of my favorite things. I love sciencing things that don't need to be science. Let's start with a simple type of ogre, a Cyclops. They are both similar in themes. I imagine Cyclopses as a small genus of ogre. You might notice that their single eye does not look like a normal organ. It would be really fun to make them sense their environment through bioelectricity. As I show you the rest of my designs, you'll see there's a common theme. If they're all the same species, how could they have sometimes one eye, sometimes two eyes, sometimes snakes for hair? And I thought, well, a lot of this can be explained through bioelectricity. Also think of the other ogres related to their species. They won't have singular eyes. The neighbors of the Cyclops in the Mediterranean species of ogres would be a gorgon. In my Ogrethology breakdown, I like to think of their hair of writhing tendrils and snakes might actually be arcs of electricity. They could use this to paralyze their prey, similar to electric eels. I just think that that would be a cool, completely original view of what the Gorgons would look like, because it comes from their eyes and it also looks like snakes. I just think that's such an interesting new perspective on something that we've seen constantly in fantasy. And it would make sense because they both have electric organs that are used in different ways, but they're still the same species. My last example of an ogre-like creature in ancient Greek mythology could be Argus, which is a large, brutish, grotesque creature with 100 eyes, sometimes 1,000 eyes. Everyone always draws him with weird, ugly, pustule eyeballs. Even if you did have eyeballs all over your body, they couldn't be usable because they're not connected to anything. You're telling me that this creature right here has eyeballs all over his skin and they all connect through an optical nerve to his brain and visual cortex and he can see out of all of them all at the same time? I don't think so. So what's a more likely way to do that? That also makes sense if all these ogre-like monsters are related to each other. Again, we have ElectroReception, which is where animals in nature can sense certain movements and creatures around them through electric organs. Again, I have a fun Ogrethology breakdown of what the myth is and then what it might have actually been in reality thousands of years ago. And these paleontologists are kind of trying to dissect these fairy tales and say, you know, it's actually quite cruel that they used these animals against their will. His eyes, if you look at it, are very similar to the Gorgon's eyes, which look like a plasma ball. You can see different focuses of electricity. And it's just a representation to show that he's using his electric organs to sense animals and creatures in his environment. I think if you can make all these ogre-like creatures from mythology seem like they're related to the same genus or species, you can take these designs that can be used for so many other monsters in mythology. Here's another example of one of the first fairy tales of ogres in history, is Humbaba. I think it's Babylonian myths, but Humbaba was a guardian of the forest of the gods, and he was said to be an evil ogre whose shape-shifting face was made of moving intestines. And it's such a crazy myth. This is supposed to be one of the first stories ever, the hero epic of the Gilgamesh, which is essentially the first Hercules. Gilgamesh fighting Humbaba ends with Gilgamesh killing Humbaba for no good reason and then cutting off his head because he's like, ew, gross. He looked like a big monster and I can only be a hero if I kill monsters. Well, he's just an animal, like a guard dog protecting a sacred forest. I just thought it would be a really fun way to connect the ogres from Greek mythology to ogres from around the world. What if instead of intestines, it was red arcs of electricity, just like with my other versions of ogres from ancient Greece? In this version, you can see that he's just a cute, well, he's not really cute, but I think he's cute. A cute little ogre with some spiky chains and horns. Those magical properties of ogres from around the world could be explained through similar anatomical organs that we see in animals in real life. For the last example of this video, I hope to make more videos about my redesign for ogres, because there's just so much more I have to tell you about, like where they came from, how they've evolved, what kind of culture they had, animals that evolved around them. I just think that there's so much to explore and invent and connect with each other, or with all these different myths of ogre-like fairy tales. But for this last design, I want to tell you guys about Bayor, who was a Cyclops leader of an ogre-like race of giants in Irish mythology called the Fomorians. Their leader, Bayor of the Evil Eye, had one big eye that could laser people. It would shoot lasers if ever his eyelids were opened. He could kill you just by staring at you. He could level fields just with a glare. It was really cool. It's a fun myth. He also ate babies. That wouldn't have been very good PR for the race of intelligent ogres and humans migrating to Ireland. But again, I thought it was a really fun way to break down this fairy tale through a scientist's perspective. I take this sort of idea of ornithologists going back to Ireland, looking at some fossils and finding out that Bayor of the Evil Eye might have been a real ogre, and that he was one of the most pragmatic of their races. He might have been a general, and although he's not great with diplomacy, he could have, like the myths say, built a seafaring naval network around Ireland. Maybe it continued this history of humans fighting ogres and ogres eating babies. It just sounds like a cousin of my version of the Gorgons or Cyclopses or Humbaba. There are so many more designs of ogres that I've done, and I'm going to continue to show you guys these new ideas that I have for every kind of sort of type of mythology with ogres in them. There's a lot around the world, and I think that they're just so specifically ugly. They're just, I don't know why, but we always as artists like to draw beautiful anime women or hunky heroic superheroes with muscles, and we always try to get better at drawing pretty people, and I don't think that we really embrace ugly characters enough. And I think this is a really great exercise to break the mold and kind of get out of your comfort zone. Try drawing an ogre, because they are just so fun, and sometimes when you intentionally try to make something ugly, I don't know, it just feels relaxing to me. Look at his cute little face. Look at the lack of a nose. It's like a worse Jar Jar Binks. Anyways, if you guys want to hear how ogres evolved, what species came before them, how do they have these electrical organs in their eyes, what is that based on in real life, and where did they come from originally, if you guys want to hear more about these ogre designs, just go ahead and like the video, comment underneath and tell me that you want to ask a question about why do some of them have 2 heads? How does that even work? Just tell me and I'll do it. I'm an ogrethologist now, and if you're watching this and you got this far in the video, technically you are an ogrethologist as well. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.